it's like working with the technologies, and it's like I know what I need to do, but then I'm like I don't know, like, from a technical standpoint, like, what I got to do next. And so, like, it's dragging out. And then, like, I'm like you, like, there's a lot of things going on, like schedules and, like, new teams. And then I'm like, now I'm just not getting it done fast enough. And I'm like, I don't want to, like, disappoint Brad and, like, not deliver for him. And then you start going through this whole thing, like, am I delivering enough? I'm not delivering enough. I'm not, like, living up to my value. You know, it's just, and then, like, all this anxiety starts creeping in.
Right.
And I'm like, oh God. And then, like, now I'm like, all I got to do, if I just get that POC done, everything's going to be okay. But it's just like, I don't know. It's, so I feel you too, just kind of trying to manage that anxiety and just, like, get things done, you know?
Yeah, man. Just say a prayer.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, hey guys, we decided to start a little differently this morning.
Yep.
Because I've got a few things going on. Shane's got a few things going on. I hit record as Shane was in the middle of talking about what he's got going on. But I went first, so you guys didn't get to hear what I have going on. But I'm sure you can hear in my voice, and you probably have a good idea what's happening. Anyway, guys, welcome back to another installment of IP2.
IP2.
So what are we talking about today, Shane?
I wanted to talk about the concept of, you know, having, as Napoleon Hill calls, a definite major purpose. A definite major purpose.
A DMP.
A DMP. A DMP for IP2. And so he and countless others always stress the importance of, like, having a main goal for your life or a main focus. And so what I wanted to explore is, like, you know, how do you find that? Why is it so difficult to find? And why do so many people go through life not knowing where they're going ultimately, right? You know, it's said that you could go up to 100 people, and, like, on average, you know, depending on where you are and just, like, normal circumstances, like 90 to 97 out of 100 people will not have any idea what their major purpose is.
I've got that written down here, Shane. Most people do not know who they are. So, as we're going to talk about some of the things, you know, in this installment, what this does is this helps you know who you are.
Yep.
It makes it easier to tell others. It makes it easier to self-correct. I think that's a big one. Because I think we get lost at times in life, not knowing what our purpose is, or not knowing what we're doing, not knowing what career choices to make. Should I take this job? Should I start this new business? Should I buy this boat? Should I buy this new car? I think it helps, you know, self-correct. Also, it makes it easier to focus, because now you know what your life's purpose is. You've defined it, and you can march to that drum beat.
You can cut out a lot of indecision.
Exactly. That's that's what I've got here. Easy to ignore the noise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think indecision is a huge cause of, I want to say failure. I guess that's an appropriate word. Like, if if there's something that you're wanting to accomplish, but you can never decide on what to do, I mean, well, you're not accomplishing that. And in a sense, you're kind of failing. You're missing the mark.
Right.
Might seem a little bit harsh, but I think that's the reality.
So let's talk about how to define your DMP or your major purpose, because I think that's what people struggle with. I mean, we just kind of define that you know, most people don't have a major purpose in life, and it's probably because, you know, have no clue how to do it.
Yeah.
And I know that when I went through this exercise, and I know exactly who I am mentally, you know, started writing it down, and I'm like, okay, yeah, but it really makes you think pretty deep down inside. It makes you, you know, really kind of meditate on who you are, because when you're actually faced with writing it down, it's a whole different story than saying, yeah, I know exactly who I am.
So that's how you approach it. You just write the, like who you are, like what your interests are, what you believe in? Like, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So, why am I here? What is my purpose in life? What's the most important things I want to accomplish in my life? What fulfills me above all other things?
Sure.
Those types of things, I mean, in some ways that we can go into defining that is, take $1 million. I know you've talked about your wealth conditioner. There's a whole purpose behind why you've built that, the reason why you want people to use it. But think about what you would do if you had $1 million. Like, what could you do? And then also, how you can change, others, with your life's fulfillment.
I just was going to add in there, like I look back at my 5 year ago self. And again, and I've said on here, I consider myself a very devout person. My faith is the center of my life here. So if you were to talk to me 5 years ago and you were telling me what I want to do is make $1 million or $100 million or whatever, it was a money centered thing, I would immediately have an aversion to that back then, because I'm you can look at the scripture and stuff like that and see the phrase in the book of Timothy, St. Paul says love of money is the root of all evil, and when Christ says you can't serve both God and mammon. So you got to choose one or the other. So I always thought money had some kind of bad thing about it. But then as I continue on in my understanding of life and just the human condition and why we want the things that we want, what it comes down to ultimately, it's not the money you want. It's just money is just a symbol, right? It's paper and precious metals that we've been told by our government. This dollar bill can buy you 10 oranges, or 50 of these can buy you a car, or something like that. So it's not the money that we want, it's what we feel like that money will give us, right? We feel like the money is going to give us a sense of freedom, that we're going to be able to provide for other people. It's going to give us that satisfaction and feeling of accomplishment.
Exactly. Thanks for bringing that up, because I think that there's two things that are kind of important. Number one is, personally who I am, what is my purpose, and then professionally who I am and what is my purpose in my career, right? And you're absolutely right. What I was talking about, what would you do with $1 million? It's about using money as an instrument, about using money as a tool. How could you serve others? Don't put a value on money itself. Don't look at the value of money itself. Look at what you can do as a service. Yep. And look at what you can do, personally for you and your family and those around you that you care about. But also as an instrument of how you could use this in your professional career. And that will help you if you're looking to be a freelancer, or you're looking to start your own business, or trying to pick a career, because you can say these are the things, or not say, you can define these things. I mean, that's what we're talking about, is defining these things. And we're saying define these things. We're talking about sitting down and writing these things down, so you have them to where if you need to, you can go back and look at them in the future. And basically, how can you use this once you know who you are and what are those things that you're wanting to accomplish, to go and start your business? Because if you hate landscaping but you love fashion, I could definitely see where someone could attract you into the landscaping field because your friend is doing it, and your friend's making all kind of money, and your friend has this perfect opportunity for you to go help him out in his landscaping business or whatever it may be. You would be miserable.
Yep.
And it's because it's not who you are. And if you know who you are, you know that you like fashion. You know that you're going to be happy if you go into the fashion industry, if you start that business, that fashion business, selling clothes, whatever it may be. So, this is about making you happy. and creating, out of the desires that you have around, who you want to be.
And it's a really powerful exercise. I mean, it's simple in its essence, right? I think, in the exercises, one part of it is, I think what Brad was saying, like, who are you? Like, what are your interests? Like, who are you, or like, what are you good at? And what things just kind of drive you, make you feel more alive. And then the second part, which I think is the hardest aspect of this exercise, is writing down, what do I genuinely want? Like, what do I actually want? And the reason this is hard is because there's a lot of areas of our life where we don't feel like we're allowed to desire these things, right? So we feel guilty about it, right? Like, I'll just go back like to the money thing, right? We've, through people who influence us in our past or other experiences, or like all kinds of possible reasons, we have certain preconceived notions about different areas of our life. One of those is money. Some people think people who are rich took advantage of somebody to get to that point, or they're crooked, or that they are dishonest people, or like they're vain or worldly and condemned. Like, there's all these ways people look at it, but then you can also you can look at it the opposite way too. So it's a difficult exercise, but what I would encourage, I do this myself, what I encourage like anyone to try is write down what do you really believe, if you're honest with yourself, will make you happy, or attaining something, or achieving something, or bringing something into your life. What is it that you feel like would just change everything? And then once you can be honest with yourself, like, analyze, why is that? Why do you feel like this is going to just change everything and how your life would be? And then somewhere, I feel like inside that answer is your purpose. And the nice thing about like a definite major purpose that I've found, and that I believe, is that you don't have to stick with that only for the rest of your life. Like, you can, like, your major purpose right now can be like paying off your car. Like, that could be like the focus of your thoughts. Okay, you pay off your car, then what do you do next? Well, you find another major purpose. Like, you find another goal to aim towards. The idea is to have a singular point of focus that you're moving towards.
Yeah, that's right. So, I think sometimes you can look at it in reverse as well, and that's how I like to do things sometimes, is I get caught up in, man, I can't figure this out. So, okay, take a couple steps back, look at this in reverse, and it helps me out. So if you think, if you were to die tomorrow, what are those things that you would regret not doing or accomplishing? So think of it that way, and then define your professional career. What would you regret if you didn't do in your professional career if you were to die tomorrow? So sometimes looking at it in reverse really helps, like, put it into perspective. This is who I am. This is what I want to accomplish. And to Shane's point earlier, sometimes we suppress ourselves because of all of our surroundings. And I think as we figure out how to do this podcast, and Shane and I staying on mission, which is staying positive, not negative, and spinning negatives into positive. That's one of the things that we're doing, as we're, working through this podcast is how do we take those things that are suppressing those things that we want and spin those things around into things that, we do want, and we tell ourselves that we can go accomplish, right?
Absolutely.
Because the world will tell you, you can accomplish nothing. But I remember saying, the world is your oyster, right?
Yep.
What happened to that? So let's bring that back. I mean, that's what we're trying to do with the podcast here. So
the world is your oyster,
the
folks.
The world is your oyster.
It's the new tagline.
So I want to go back to something that you said, and I want to bring a little bit of this into this. It's kind of like a business, right? I mean, if you're thinking of, think of some of the major corporations today. I mean, those major corporations, and those of you that have started small businesses, And even those of you that are innovators or entrepreneurs, I mean, that's how you start out, right? You define what it is your company or your business is going to do. I mean, some of the largest corporate companies in the world, that are doing billions of dollars in business, they have a mission statement. Mm-hmm. They have a reason for existence. And if they didn't have that reason for existence in the beginning, they would have never been able to convince employees to come and work for them, because they would have not been able to explain to those employees what it is they needed them to do. Think of investments, our investors going to the bank and trying to get money for opening this new business. The bank is going to want to know what your purpose is. How are you going to pay us back? Mm-hmm. So you have to define those things, and that's part of the DMP, is defining that mission statement that becomes your central mission in life. And as I was talking about earlier, once you do that, you achieve a sense of freedom, fulfillment, and inspiration, because now you know internally who you are through reflection. But I do also want to go back to one of the things that you were saying about even like incremental like missions that you're trying to accomplish. I mean, that's definitely part of this, right? Because taking it back to the small business or the corporate business, the entire purpose of these companies, especially when you're traded on the stock market, is to your investors, right? I mean, it's your fiduciary duty to the investors of the company to continue to make the company profitable. Yep. So you're constantly having to reassess new opportunities, right? But you still have that central core mission in mind.
And something that I wanted to add to that, to make sure, at least for me, like something I feel like is really important for me and just for this topic in general, is that like, I have a problem with a lot of mission statements that companies have. For example, like there's this one company I actually very, very much respect, and I won't name them, but like their mission is to change the world. And I have a huge problem with that. Can you guess why I have a huge problem with that?
Because it's extremely vague.
It is so vague. It is so, like, what does that mean?
Exactly.
If you change one person's outlook on life, you've changed the world. Because, like, you've changed one world. Okay, you're done. Okay, you give up. But, like, no, that's not it. So when you have a definite major purpose, make sure it's laser focused. And, like, you can tangibly see exactly what you're talking about. If you're... so let's take money, for example. Okay, my major purpose is to make money. Okay? Make it more detailed. My major purpose is to make a lot of money. Well, what's a lot of money? To some people, $100 is like a year's salary to them, right? Don't just say that. Be like, my goal is to make, $300,000 next year so I can pay off my house, or whatever. Like, understand, what is it about that number, that you're wanting, right? What do you want to do with it, right? And so rather than like say, I just want to make more money, be like, I want to make enough money so I can pay off my house by July of 2019.
It's putting purpose behind your reason.
Exactly.
I mean, Tony Robbins talks about in a couple of his books, achieving financial security. And most people say, okay, what is financial security to you? $500 billion. Why?
Yep.
Like, you need to understand like what financial security is, what financial independence is. And he talks about in a couple of his books, he started walking through with a couple of his friends or a couple of people that he knows, where he started asking these questions. And when he says, okay, let's define what financial security is. Financial security is your entire lifestyle is taken care of without you having to do really anything. Meaning that you've gotten to a point to where you either have investments or you have some kind of revenue coming in where it's basically offsetting your lifestyle. That's financial independence, right? And if you really break that down and you begin to look at that, how much does it take the average American to have financial security? Well, when you really start looking at it, it's typically about $60,000 or less a year.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you want to stop? No. You want to keep going. Sure, absolutely. But you have goals. You have milestones that you're trying to reach. And you need to really understand what something like financial security is so you can aim to get there. And then past that, you know what your milestones are. Sure, set a goal of $500 billion. But know what you're going to do with that $500 billion.
You know
Put
why
a purpose behind that number and what you plan to do with it. How do you plan to spend that money? Do you plan on helping the needy? Do you plan on providing clean drinking water to third world countries? What is it that you want to do with that money? Because it's one thing to want money, but it's another thing to know what you're going to do with that money to make the world better.
And then it's even another thing to actually have it. You know, like I remember I was talking to a friend of mine who he's actually like testing out this wealth conditioner thing, and like even before he started, he's like, he was talking to me like day 2, day 3, you know, because there's not a lot of things that he's, I guess, really wanting, or at least admitting he's wanting. So like he's been using it for a couple days, and he has like all this money in this imaginary bank account, and he's just like, he was telling me, I was saying the other day, like I had $3,500. I didn't know what to do with it, so I just like I gave it to my girlfriend. And I'm like, okay, like you have to learn how to emotionally handle that money. But then it's so funny is that like later on in that day, I overheard him talking to some friends. He's like, oh man, if I had $200 million, I mean, here's exactly what I would do. I'm like, no, you're lying, because you don't even know what you would do with $3,000.
Right.
So
yeah.
it's important to be asking yourself, like, what would I do with this money? Like, how could I emotionally handle it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it the goals that you set, will lead to these constant accomplishments that we're talking about, right? And then it will encourage you to reach your ultimate destination, right? I mean, there's definitely things that you have to do, to incrementally get there, but you know what your destination is. You know what you're driving towards.
So what I would also recommend too, for those of you, and this is something I do myself, and this is what Brad does as well, is like once you figure out, what is your definite major purpose for right now, like find something that you are going to be okay with working towards. It doesn't matter how long. It could be 15 years down the road. It could be a year down the road. But like find out what that major purpose is, and it's very, very important to every single day. When you wake up, within like the first few minutes of your day and the last few minutes before you go to sleep, make sure you restate and be intentional about, this is my goal. This is what I'm moving towards. My thoughts are going to be directed towards accomplishing what I've written down here. And believe that you are going to get there.
Yeah, and that's what Napoleon Hill says.
Yes.
Not only read it, He suggests laying down in bed in a dark room and reading it out loud, like saying it out loud. Like don't internalize it. Write it down once you've defined it and read it out loud so you hear yourself telling yourself this is what your
because words are powerful. Words are the thought expressed, and yet words are very, very powerful. When you say something out loud, when you write something down, and when you like declare it. It just kind of changes the reality of that thought. Not the reality, but like it brings it, I feel like, into reality, that goal. So, so I think it's important we find what that major purpose is every single day, without fail, morning and night. Be intentional with yourself and say, this is my goal. This is what I'm moving towards. What can I do today? And then at night, what could I do tomorrow to move towards this more? And then I feel like you're going to see that your life has a lot more purpose. I mean, you're going to feel like, hey, there's a reason to get out of bed. I know why I'm disciplining myself. I know why I'm working so hard. Like, I see where I'm going. And that adds a lot of satisfaction, adds a lot more joy and excitement to your life because you know you're moving towards something. Major purposes, huge aspect of, I think, a positive and happy, energetic life.
Yep. Stop waking up every morning looking at Instagram and being jealous of what everybody's posting.
Yeah, and jealousy just keeps it out of your life.
Because if you're doing that, you're constantly seeing different things on there that you want. I want to be like her. I want to be like him. I want to have this. I want to have that. That derails you from what your mission is.
Yeah, because even more than that, what you're seeing is, I don't have this. I don't have this person. I don't have this relationship. And like what we've been talking about before, and when it's been like proven over and over and over again, and like major players in like the self-help industry and psychologists and all these people say that the mind tends to focus on, like whatever you think about, that's what your mind focuses on. It doesn't matter if it's something good or bad. It doesn't care. If you're always thinking about your lack and how you don't have enough, your life tends to bring more of that lack in as well.
That's right. Look at your major purpose, your DMP, every morning and night, not Instagram.
Yeah.
So, defining your major purpose creates freedom, fulfillment, and recognition.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, we are at the mark, Shane.
We are.
We're going to wrap it up.
We're going to wrap it up, and we will be back on Monday with another riveting episode of the IP2. And again, as usual, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you have any ideas for topics you want to hear discussed, please let us know. We're always looking for new ideas. So thank you very much. We hope you guys got something out of it. I know we did. And looking forward to Monday.
Copy that. This is Brad and Shane signing off.